Shalom Aleichem. Welcome to our weekly Parsha discussion. This week's Parsha is Shemini. And Shemini talks about three major concepts. Let's call it that. One is the dedication of the sanctuary, which is the beginning of the Parsha. Aaron went in, and that's when the Mishkan became fully operative. Second part speaks about kosher food. What animals, what fish, what birds are acceptable to eat. The third part deals with laws of purity and impurity. It's where many of the laws of purity and impurity come from. So the Parsha, Vayihi Bayom HaShemini, on the 8th day. The next week's Parsha, Tazria Mitzorah, also starts off on the 8th day. It's if a woman gives birth, so she has to circumcise the child on the 8th day. Vayihi Bayom HaShemini, the consecration of the temple, of the Mishkan, the sanctuary in the desert, and the sanctuary of the human body, which is the sexual organ, they're very closely related. You can't make a sanctity out of anything else except if you have purity. So the Parsha this week ends with laws of purity. It ends with ideas of purity and impurity. What is considered kosher, what is considered acceptable, what is considered right, what is considered wrong. And next week we go into Tazria, which speaks about purity. The idea behind the Parsha this week is we have to learn how to sanctify ourselves. First, Aaron goes into the sanctuary. He does all the service that's necessary. He does all the service that's required of him. And then his children go in and they do something that's not required, and they died. Now, Aaron's two children were very great tzaddikim. And yet, because they did something uncalled for, they died. Right? There's a lot of different midrashim why, what actually caused it, whether they were drunk, or they brought a sacrifice that wasn't really called for. There's a whole bunch of stories on that. That's not the issue. The issue is that these two great tzaddikim, who were, the Medrash said, being readied to take over the Jewish nation after Moshe and Aaron, that's how great they were. They were to be the future leaders of the Jewish nation, and yet they made an error. Sanctity is something between Hashem and you. You choose the parameters that you want to be. Hashem gave us parameters. We try. We're human. Being human allows us to do things that are right and allows us, unfortunately, to do things that are wrong. It happened by the very great tzaddikim. It could happen to us too. The idea is not to be too overzealous in what we're doing, in what we're trying. And Moshe Rabbeinu says, after this whole story with Aaron and his children, he says, this is what you're permitted to eat, and this is not permitted. kosher, non-kosher. The connection between the two is simply meant to teach us that there are things that are okay and there are things that are not okay. Don't try and wiggle your way around a little something else. There's a mitzvah. Do it simply. Same thing with purity and impurities. The mitzvah. Do it right, and you don't have to worry about right or wrong because you did it right. And that's the main lesson of the Parsha. Learn to do things the best you can, right. Choose wisely, and Be'ez Hashem, we're going to see wonderful and beautiful things happening to all of us. Have a great Shabbos.